very young age, we've been narrated the story of the Big Bang, the huge explosion that led to the creation of everything we know today, from the gravel under your feet to the beams in your eyes. This loud event was also the reason for the creation of this giant floating piece of rock we now call home. And here is where you and I took our first step to becoming the most advanced, yet curious and sad species we know today. And all of this collectively is the story of life. And as you can tell, it's a long story. So to simplify all of this mess, scientists basically needed an easier means to understand the remarkable interrelationship between all living beings on Earth, because this would get too complicated without structure. So biologists devised a means of simplifying things by constructing illustrations that would help them grasp the ever-increasing complexity of life. And they very cleverly labeled it as phylogenetic analysis. Phylogenetic analysis was once a tool used by taxonomists, or as they are now called, systematics, for the classification and elucidation of ancestral relationship among organisms. With the advent of DNA sequencing, the horizon of this field was extended to genomics and bioinformatics, where it is now considered as a backbone of these fields. And hence there exists a need for biological professionals to develop a basic familiarity with phylogenetics. And here we will see how to make beautiful, elaborative and descriptive phylogenetic trees. But let's just answer one question here. What exactly is a phylogenetic tree? So to an evolutionary biologist, a phylogenetic tree is a representation of the relation of different species to their ancestors, whereas to a molecular biologist, it is a representation of the relationship of a gene or a protein sequence to their ancestral sequences. And in both of these cases, it is the relationship of an entity to its predecessors. So now today we see phylogenetic trees appear very frequently in molecular papers that are even unrelated to phylogenetics or evolution. Their inclusion reflects the growing recognition of trees as a tool for understanding biological processes. Phylogenetic trees allow you to organize your thinking about a protein of interest in terms of its relationship to other proteins, and may allow you to draw conclusions about a protein's biological function that would not be otherwise apparent. Due to the rapid advancements in sequencing technology, many of the newly discovered proteins are assigned functions based on sequence homology. Phylogenetic analysis can help you to determine how closely your sequence is related to a sequence whose function is actually known from biological or a biochemical information. Or you can use phylogenetics as a means to solve some crime. So let's enter story time. In 1994, a doctor had a breakup with one of his ex-affairs. And in this time, a few time later, the doctor administered a vitamin B injection to the patient, or in this case, we will call them the victim. The victim developed HIV 6 months later, and it was found that the day the doctor gave the vitamin B injection to the patient was the same day he had taken a blood sample from an HIV positive patient. So could it be that the doctor intentionally administered the victim with blood that was taken from the HIV positive patient? So now, because there were allegations to the doctor and he claimed that she could have gotten HIV from any possible source, scientists were called in. And based upon science, this case was solved based upon phylogenetics. So essentially, whenever a virus mutates, it develops certain sort of mutations that are passed on to all of its respective progeny. And hence, if a virus was derived from a particular virus species, it is going to have the same mutations present in it as compared to that of its ancestral relation. So if the doctor actually administered the virus to the victim from the patient, then their viruses must be more closely related to each other as compared to the viruses that are present in the community. And based upon this data, a phylogenetic tree was constructed. But how exactly can we solve this problem by reading this huge tree? So this is where the importance of reading a phylogenetic tree arises. So this is basically what a normal phylogenetic tree looks like, and over the ends we see species, and these are basically the entities about which we have the most information. Connected with the help of branches, these entities are connected to nodes, and these are basically the species or the entities from which these species rose. So now let's have a look at how to read a phylogenetic tree. So one of the most easiest way to read a phylogenetic tree, it is to focus on the most recent ancestors. And over here we can have a few things that we can infer from this. So basically, over here we can say that eagles are more closely related to elephants as compared to squids. And how we can make this claim? It is because eagles, they rise from a common ancestor that gave rise to both elephants and eagles. And in this way, if we look at the most common ancestor, we can actually conclude that which organisms are more closely related to one another as compared to others. And no matter how the phylogenetic tree is arranged, we can always make the same conclusions irrespective of how these organisms are arranged, and the relationship among these organisms, it is always going to remain the same. So coming back to the story of the HIV patient, we see that in this phylogenetic tree, a lot of divergence occurred within the same patient, and this is because of the ability of the HIV virus to mutate very rapidly in organisms and their hosts. So looking at the same common ancestors, we can see that the ancestral virus that gave rise to the virus in the patient and the virus in the victim are more closely related because they branch off from the same common ancestor as compared to the common ancestor that gave rise to the HIV viruses that are present anywhere else in the community, indicating that the virus was exactly put from this patient into the victim. Now this is how phylogenetics was successful in putting a doctor behind bars and giving them an indication of not to use their power ruthlessly. So this was how phylogenetics can be useful in many contexts. In the next series, we are going to be discussing about how to construct a basic phylogenetic tree and a lot of information regarding that. So thank you so much for watching.